liegt Deutschland, in uns marschiert Deutschland und hinter uns kommt Deutschland.
World War II. With almost 70 million dead, the Second World War was the deadliest conflict in human history. While the war in Europe ended in May 1945, the war in the Pacific against Japan raged on for 3 more months, ending with the American use of a new, unmatched weapon, the atomic bomb. The location chosen for this attack, Hiroshima, a civilian city. When Robert Oppenheimer, father of the atomic bomb, saw the destructive force of his masterpiece, he knew of its grave implications.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Now I am become death, Bhagavad Gita, the destroyer of worlds. I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
They understood what they were doing. They were unleashing a power unlike any humankind had ever had. We now had the ability not just to kill others, but to kill all other human beings.
Soon thereafter, the Soviet Union developed its own nuclear weapon, forcing the US and the USSR into a deadly standoff where the use of these weapons could destroy both countries, as well as the world. This stalemate, known as the Cold War, reached a peak during the Cuban Missile Crisis, arguably the closest moment the two countries came to war.
So you have, it's kind of like you and I are in a fist fight. It's a conventional war. Then all of a sudden I pull out a gun. Well, you pull out a gun. All right, well, we got peace now because we're not fighting anymore. However, who's going to say who's going to pull the trigger first? And that peace could disappear very quickly. So you could you could say that nuclear weapons would somehow symbolize those guns. Granted, our conventional fighting stopped, but how stable is that peace?
In 1968, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty was created in order to control and eventually to reduce the number of nuclear weapons in the world. However, the number of countries with nuclear weapons has been steadily increasing, with Iran allegedly developing its own arsenal, and with North Korea, Israel, Pakistan, and India obtaining such weapons outside of the treaty. This undermines the Non-Proliferation Treaty and poses a danger to global security, including the security of the United States.
Nuclear weaponry, of course, would be the be-all, end-all of just too many people and too many parts of our planet, so those dangerous regimes, again, cannot be allowed to acquire nuclear weapons, period.
Question. I do believe that North Korea undermined the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. You have a big idea, or a large idea with the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, in order to be completely effective, it has to be universal. So just speaking about Israel, for instance, Israel kind of sits out here. It's an exception to the rule, if you will, and it's an exception that the United States has looked past since Israel started, and some would say that the United States is even aware and complicit in helping Israel to develop its nuclear weapons program. So Israel's non-participation in the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty certainly does not strengthen the treaty. If anything, it provides an excuse for countries looking to undermine the treaty. Israel sets a very bad example and sets a bad precedence, yes. So I don't know if it undermines the treaty directly because it is not really a party to the treaty. However, it prevents the treaty from being as effective as it could be. North Korea, on the other hand, kind of undermines the treaty, or rather, I would say undermines the treaty, like the language you used, in that it manipulates the treaty for its own benefit. Throughout the 1990s, it was developing a covert nuclear weapons program, despite its obligations under the treaty. And then when it decided to, pulled out of the treaty, gave its notice, pulled out of the treaty, and then tested a weapon and not too long thereafter. So that does directly undermine the treaty, because there's a big worry, or rather there's a known capability of countries to develop a covert nuclear weapons program within the treaty and then pull out. North Korea is the perfect example. It's called a breakout capability. It's coming, so nuclear weapons programs here, developing your program to right here, and then pulling out of the treaty and making that leap. They call it breaking out. And so North Korea is the perfect example of that. I believe Iran can be deterred. I believe that Iran's goal is not complete martyrdom, which is in effect what destruction would be. So as long as its goals aren't complete martyrdom, then it's likely to not be able to be, or then it's likely to be able to be deterred.
So what can America do? As a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, America has the obligation to share peaceful nuclear technology with other member states to ensure they do not feel the desire to obtain nuclear weapons themselves. As the world's sole superpower, America also has the responsibility to reduce its own nuclear arsenal of approximately 10,000 nuclear warheads. This is our one and only world. We don't have the luxury to allow ourselves to be held hostage by the threat of nuclear annihilation.